Palm court music really must have started around the sort of 1890s, 1900s, very much in the palm court of the hotels, and that's why it was called Palm Court Orchestra, Palm Court Trios, because every hotel worth its salt had to have its own little palm court. Five years ago, really, I didn't think we'd be running a full-time office. Sitting at the computer and on the telephone all day, and we also have one lady who comes and does all our books for us. I've just taken on a full-time crew member as well, who's also doing building for us, building all the sets and all the other kinds of bits and pieces that we have to take around. So it's growing and growing, really. Every time we think it's not going to grow a bit more, it goes in another direction. One of the fun things that we did a few years ago now was for TVS. It was a quiz program. We made the film in Bewley. Of course, in the library I had a piece about motor cars. It was, he had to get out and get under.
I was dancing onto the deck of a bus. I thought it was quite good. It was bouncing about all over the place.
It was a lovely little piece of film, and in fact it was shown then all over England. Everywhere we went after that, people used to come and say, "Oh, we've seen you somewhere, haven't we?" And, "Oh yes, on top of that bus, wasn't it?" And of course people started ringing us up and said, "You know, it'd be a lot of good if you, very nice if you could come and play for us on that bus that you've got." I say, "Well, a bit tricky, really." About 1977, when I found that my father had left me this enormous amount of music, something like about 10,000 scores of all light music, right the way across the board to silent film music, to ragtime. But after he died, my mother phoned up and said, "Look, all this music and all the garden sheds, I'm absolutely falling over it all the time."
She said the rain is coming in on it and the mice are eating it. I remember the mice are eating the music.
So I said to Pat, "Oh, come on, we better go down." And she said she was going to either throw it out, you see, or sell it or something. I said, "Look, don't do that. Whatever you do, don't get rid of it. I want to come down and have a look at it." I never really looked at it because I'd been involved in light music when I first left college. I played for Max Jaffa up in Scarborough for a few years, and I played for some in Torquay. And I wasn't really into light music at all. I was absolutely 100% classical, you see. So, because I thought it was all that sort of, what one heard in the sort of 50s of with Grand Hotelish and all the sort of lighter sort of side of it. Anyway, we went down to have a look at it, and when we started going down through the piles, the first thing was the music covers, wasn't it?
They were just amazing. In fact, the very first one we took out was a very large lady in a diaphanous nightie prancing through the waves. It was a German piece of music, and I thought, gosh, you know, it was so robust, that was the thing. How can this be the sweet, sentimental stuff? This lady was never sweet and sentimental in her life. You know? And we carried on digging it out.
So I brought a pile of this music back, you see, and I was in the BSO at the time. We got some colleagues together and we tried it out. And it sounded terrible the first time. It really sounded awful.
They've been playing Shostakovich, I think, haven't they?
You know, light music is actually terribly difficult to play. And I must say, it just sounded ghastly the first time. Anyway, after a few goes, it was beginning to sound really, you know, quite nice. And so we thought, well, we don't want to do just a straight concert with it. Let's put on a series of shows. We started with Pat playing the horn gramophone with The whole orchestra absolutely still, not a movement. Then as soon as Pat took the needle off, then the orchestra would start. This is the Salon Quintet, which is really like a palm chord trio, which would be piano, violin and cello. We add to it clarinet and double bass, making it a rather nice sound. My father was thrown into a pit orchestra when he was only about 12 years old as a drummer. They dressed him up in Dad's big frock coat and said, right, you're off to somewhere in Scotland. He started with his own little orchestras, palm court orchestras, theatre orchestras, but in those days you had to have your own library music. So he began buying, and he seemed to be very astute because he bought lots of this very interesting music that I haven't seen anywhere since. All the family were in it. There were 12 in his family, 6 girls and 6 boys, and they were all in either music hall or in music. They all had to do something. You see, there was Haydn. They used to dress him up in this sort of Lord Fauntleroy get-up, and he only had one tune. A real spark sort of flying all over the place, but just the one tune, and he used to go around all the halls with just one tune. The other one, who was rather exotic, was Eileen. We have a photograph of her with one leg up in the air, showing a lot of leg and with a violin.
Oh, glamour with music.
So that was, she was certainly did the glamour part.
All the girls in the photographs look very glamorous, actually,
yes,
for that time.
yes.
They must have been a terrific family to know, because they look enormous fun.
Well, there were enough girls there to have a complete little girls' orchestra. There was grandmother, wasn't it, on the piano, or great-grand, I think it was. Then all the sisters playing violins and cellos and double basses, and they toured all over the place. It was called Granny's birthday, wasn't it?
Yes, that's right.
It was 1969 when I joined the Bournemouth Symphony Orchestra, and 78 we formed the Palm Court Theatre Orchestra. And the first year we only did about 5 or 6 dates with it, I suppose. But by 1980 we brought out our first record, which was the Picnic Party. That won an award in Paris, which is the Grand Prix du Disque Award, and then it started getting played quite a lot. And consequently, we were asked to do all kinds of things after that. We played on the Orient Express. We played on the Victoria Station, and we also had to then travel down on the train and play also on the ferry going over. The person doing the filming was Alan Wicker, and Lisa Minnelli was dancing to our music, which was quite nice, really.
It was a very stylish orchestra. I mean, we made them wear their hair parted in the middle and the tails and the whole works, and drink champagne with elegance. They were good at that. And so we got bookings I don't think other orchestras would have got in those days, because we were part of the guest list half the time. We mingled well, though, and so we played some tremendous places in the earlier years. So much so that we had a crisis, because the Bournemouth Symphony Orchestra was not as far ahead in their bookings as we were. So we had to come to some kind of a decision. didn't we?
I left it till 1982 to leave, but it was getting very hairy because I was taking on dates a year ahead, and I didn't know whether I was going to be free or not at some points. All light music is extremely difficult to play, and it has to be played very, very well. Once it begins to drop from anything but the best, it begins to sound dowdy.
It's enormous fun when you listen to it. It's got, I suppose, a good strong tune usually, and it's very well orchestrated. It's very well crafted. We have musicians from some of the best orchestras in London, and they are very impressed by this music. They don't think it's kind of rubbish or anything. They really do think it's well put together. It's beautifully arranged, and it was a time of kind of craftsmanship. So it's like the kind of Art Deco and that kind of period. It's terribly well made. You can't fault it.
Over the last 10 years, we become busier and busier. People have seen the set that we take out. They often say, oh, we love the set. Could you decorate the whole of the Waldorf ballroom, for instance?
We did turn the top floor of the Science Museum into 1926 version of the Aquitania, and there was life belts and seagulls, and Tony wore a captain's outfit, and we really did. In fact, somebody there, one of the guests there that night, thought we'd hired Tony in as an actor to look the part. They said, was he real?
Coca-Cola asked us if we would play for ball for them, but they wanted to advertise Coca-Cola within the orchestra as well. So, rather stupidly, I suggested that maybe 6'6" Coca-Cola cans might be a nice idea, with our dancers coming out of them, you see, as a sort of cabaret act.
To the Koki Koki, which was the original title of the Hokey Cokey. On our music it says the Koki Koki. It was a joke, really.
I never thought they'd take it up. Never one moment did I think they'd take it up. And they immediately said, oh, brilliant, what a wonderful, brilliant idea. And I said, oh dear. And they said, well, can you make them for us? I said, well, okay, well, fine. And I came back to Pat and said, I need 2 6'6" Coca-Cola cans, perfectly painted, absolutely exactly like same as Coca-Cola. They have to open as well for the dancers to come out of. They have little wheels on the bottom, and you've got a week to build them. We've still got them. We've got them upstairs, actually. We've so little room that we have to use them as wardrobes now. The Brighton Festival phoned me up several months ago and asked me if we'd like to do an event during the festival.
You're blue and you don't know where to go to. Why don't you go where fashion sings? Putting on the wreath. Different types wear a deck, pants with stripes, and cutaway, hardly fit.
They said that they wanted to try this new venue, which is the Palm Court Restaurant. It's just the right name for us, on the pier. I went over to have a look at the restaurant. It's about halfway down the pier and absolutely sort of Crossman Art Deco, Art Nouveau, etc. Beautiful, beautiful venue. Right from the word go, we've been totally self-supporting. Did try for some grants in the beginning from the British Council, but we've never been successful in getting anything. So we decided to forget it and just be totally commercial. And we had to plough a tremendous amount of money into it in the first years. And but we've kept hard at it and reduced the overdraft a bit.
Interesting to learn a whole new market, which very, very different from the classical field. You book much more ahead when you're doing concerts and theatres, but the dates coming in for hotels and launching things come in sometimes with only a week to spare. And you kind of rise to the challenge. And when we couldn't get the big orchestra in, we then started reducing, but rather than reduce the kind of flavour of the main orchestra, we formed smaller groups playing the same era of music but in their own style. So we have a hot club quartet and a kind of cool jazz swingtet. We call it the swingtet because it covers 5, 6 or whatever swing. And there was on the music the swingtet, so we thought we'd just use the name from there.
Because my shoes refuse to ever go weary. I keep cheerful, holiday full of music sweet, 'cause I got happy feet.
When you find that your mind keeps you wide and blue, you can always let your feet keep your disposition sweet. Wanna see what makes me feel the way I do? Will you kindly cast an eye on 2 good reasons why?
When I first formed the orchestra, I formed it with people from the Bournemouth Symphony Orchestra because I was playing there at the time. But after I left, of course, Bournemouth Symphony Orchestra players were on contract and it was very difficult for them to get away. So then we had to go to London. And now we have a small pool of players in London from the very top and from the top orchestras. And they absolutely love playing this idiom of music, and they play it so well. Our cellist, John Sharp, is a very good example of how everybody in the orchestra has to do something else. John, when he first came with us, was a cellist, and then he sung, and then he eventually learned to tap dance. And now he is the most brilliant tap dancer. And of course he bounces and tap dances in Happy Feet.
Do say to us that in the orchestra, where else would they get to play this kind of music? They have within it a certain amount of freedom because there are solo bits, especially in the dance band music, which gives them the freedom to stand up. They sing. I mean, they actually all croon now, and you don't know quite often which one's going to leap to his feet and do the chorus.
we're very fortunate in having Linda Murray with us, who's a very fine singer. She's been with us from the very beginning. What is so nice about Linda, so good about Linda, is she is equally good at the classical side or the salon side as well as the dance band side. There are other people doing parts of what we do. There are people I know doing salon music. I know there are people doing the 30s and the 40s. But I don't think that there's nobody else going from 1890 up to 1945. And there's certainly nobody else doing a show like this.
We've actually got a cutting from the stage from some years back now saying that this whole movement could be traced back to Tony Godwin on the south coast with the Palm Court Theatre Orchestra, and I thought that was quite nice. I've got it pinned away somewhere. Pioneers of this whole thing.
Next. And adapted, not least most recently, for the skaters Torval and Dean. But then it was written as a ballet, not as a genuine Spanish bolero. The conductor is Rudolf Barschai. Ravel's Bolero, and amongst the other soloists, the percussion section of the orchestra receiving especially warm appreciation from the audience. That ends this gala concert with the Bournemouth Symphony Orchestra conducted by Rudolf Barschau. We wish the two Bournemouth orchestras well in their future as providers of fine live music in the south and west. For now, from Bournemouth, in Bournemouth International Centre, good night